everything's weighted. Yes. Yes. Love it. What's up, dude?
Put this up.
Dude, you remember these?
I do remember those. I have one in here.
That was from freshman year.
I'm trying to see where I got it somewhere. Hold on one sec. Trying to get this lined up right.
This has already started off.
Take off my helmet. We'll put it on display.
Nice.
All right, cool. Hopefully I have enough battery. If not, I'll replug in.
Oh, we're good.
All right, there we go.
Good to see you, brother.
You too. How you doing, bud?
Doing good, man. We got it. We got our first sponsor of Coffee with Kdub, man. We got Loma
nice.
Coffee sponsoring it today.
Yeah. We'll put it right here for everyone to see.
Love it.
Little Shantani Village.
Love it, man. Well, appreciate you joining us this morning, brother. Out on the West Coast there, left coast.
Yeah, buddy.
And yeah, man, we just for those that might not know, we were teammates in college. We go back quite some time. You were before you joined, I told people you were the better known Kevin of the Bearcats in the late '90s. But we had a good time, man. I think that we both could attest that when we got there, Cincinnati baseball wasn't necessarily a sexy pick to go to college for. But it was kind of like the bunch of misfits that got together and we made something happen. And certainly you and Singh and a lot of the other guys that we had that were really, really good in helping us get there. But together, we all grew up really together in those few years, which is crazy to think of how much that was accomplished in those couple years.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun 4 years. I mean, we got lucky that we had a good group of guys that came in freshman year. Basically, as Coach Cleary always says, we were the best available out of the misfits that were out there that he recruited. But it was a unique situation because we had a bunch of guys that were kind of overlooked, and we had a bunch of guys that just loved baseball. Would work together. I mean, we had different personalities, from PA to, we had guys from all over the country, California eventually to, your random Ohio, all state guys. So I think that was one of the cool things is learning how to come together. Our freshman year, we got our butts kicked. I mean, we got worked because we were just so young and we were 18 years old, just trying to learn. And that's a part of baseball, though. It's such a process, and I don't think people really understand how long it takes of a process for some guys to mature and get better. And I think that's something that we did very, very well, is we matured together and trusted in the process together. But we were just scrappy grinders.
Yeah, it was an interesting bunch, but I think it was kind of a reflection, I guess, of the times, right? It was kind of, these jerseys, again, they were 10 pounds. They didn't even have my number when I got there. They had a special order one, and we had shirts that some guy wore 4 years before us, cotton shirts that was our practice gear. And it was kind of, I mean, literally nothing was handed to us, but we made something of it. But I want to touch upon kind of your experience. I don't know, I mean, again, you played 10 plus years in the big leagues and All-Star, World Series champ. People might think, oh yeah, you had your choice of schools to go to. Maybe share with that guy watching right now that might feel like he's the underdog or maybe he's getting overlooked, but he knows in his mind that he's got it. Share us a little bit about your journey, like how you got to UC and what you did to take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, as my son's trying to bang down the door. Hold on, bud. One sec. Yeah, this quarantine for parenting is not easy. Yeah, so my journey was it was unique. I think that the key, well, not the key, but what happened was, I was always the local, one of the better players in my high school. I was one of the better players. I was a little bit on the chubbier side, not a great physique, not the sexy pick. as Chris Farley would like to say, and I'm using. But yeah, that was my thing. I could hit. I loved the game. I could pitch a little bit too. I remember I hit a home run off Aaron Cook, where 30 scouts were there to look at Aaron Cook, and I'll never forget. A couple of the guys came to watch the game. They were at Moeller, and one of the guys, one of the scouts goes, "Who is that guy? That just took him deep to center field." And they're like, "You don't know who that is? That's Kevin." Like, so locally, a lot of people knew in the city that I played against, knew of who I was and my talents, but it just wasn't sexy to the college, recruiters. It wasn't sexy to the scouts. And so through that, what I learned was nothing's going to be handed to me. I have to work hard for it. I didn't get really many offers. I had offers to go to University of Cincinnati after I went to their baseball camp. So I went to the winter camp, and Coach Cleary saw me at the winter camp because I went there since I was a kid. It wasn't any other reason. I wasn't I mean, I would definitely wanted to play at UC, but I just went because I went to camp there every year. So it was kind of a fun thing that I loved. And Butler University. So Butler University and UC were my two choices. And if I was a shooting guard in basketball, those would be the most glamorous schools to be recruited by. But baseball programs weren't strong. And, for me, I chose UC because my dad went to UC. I loved UC growing up, but I didn't have a lot of choices. And I was actually going to go to play junior college ball if I didn't get a Division I offer. So my goal was to play Division I, and I didn't get a lot of looks. And then luckily, Coach Cleary saw something, and I had to grind. I wasn't even supposed to play and there was another guy that was a third baseman that they thought was a better third baseman than me in fall ball, and kind of got overlooked. And I just had to put my head down, just keep learning, keep growing, and just showing my worth. And eventually it happened. I played, Coach Cleary put me in to start, and I saw every pitch of the 4-year career at the University of Cincinnati, which was one of the coolest accomplishments of my life. So, I just grinded it out. Junior year didn't get drafted. Michael Vick got drafted in the 30th round. People kept telling me that I was good enough to get drafted, but no one wanted to draft me. And luckily, went to Cape Cod League, top 10 in hitting there. And while guys are moaning and groaning in the dugout that the field stinks and this stinks because they're at SEC schools and all these great places, I was like, man, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I get to play against the best talent from around the country. I get to compete. And that was just my mission always, was get better, compete, and not worry about the outside influences, because I didn't get those opportunities. So I just kept learning that if you put your head down, you keep learning the game, keep getting better, something will happen in the future. But you can't control the future. All you can control is your good at bats, getting better on defense, learning, the proper footwork, learning how to run the bases properly. The fundamentals of the game that I always preach are what make you keep getting better and better and better. It's like riding a bike. Once you get that strong fundamental core, then you move on to the next thing. But the problem is, if you don't perfect within the box, how can you get outside that box?
That's awesome, man. That's awesome, Kev. I appreciate it. Again, well, we've got Kevin Youkilis joining us on another edition of Coffee with Kdub. And listen, I might have a distinct advantage in terms of, again, we shared the field together in the locker room and the baseball house and the buses and the planes and all that in college. And so I might hopefully be able to extract some more of this good stuff out of you for people that are watching. But I want to kind of focus in on, and you kind of mentioned it, alluded to it a little bit, but I want to focus in on a chip, meaning a chip on his shoulder. Now, people say, oh, that guy's got a chip on his shoulder. It could be Josh Donaldson. It could be Kevin Youkilis. It could be anybody, right? They say he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think some people sometimes take that the wrong way, or they may be misinformed about where that came from. Or maybe it's not so much a chip, but it's a motivating factor of some sort. You kind of alluded to us, weren't highly recruited out of high school, passed over in the draft. Junior year, accomplishing. I mean, you hit 400 in college. Listen, I mean, it's not like you hit 330. You hit 400 in college. We were talking on your live a couple of weeks ago. Your freshman year, you hit 280, and I think you led us, and I hit 130. I had to work my ass off to hit 130 that year. So you accomplished so much, but in terms of that chip, did you have one? How did you, if you did, how did you use it? Or was there other motivating factors through that process and beyond in the pro ball with that for you?
Oh yeah, I had a huge chip on my shoulder. I mean, people, like I said before, people kept telling me I was too fat, I was too this. They always said things I couldn't. They always looked at the negatives. They never looked at the positives. And you know, I always tell people the best coaches I was always around were the guys that saw your positives and maybe saw some of your weaknesses and just wanted to work on your weaknesses and not attack you every single day about your weaknesses. They just saw little things that they could do. I remember, you know, coaches that, you know, working on early work and little things that, slow rollers at third, or, arm angles and different positioning and how to get better each day. So my chip on my shoulder made me want to work harder. It made me know that I was not as talented in certain, height, all the things that come with it when scouts look at guys. But, you know, for me, the chip on the shoulder it's a very good thing, but it can also be a very negative thing. The key about a chip on the shoulder is every single day you're striving to be better and better and better and to prove your worth. And so my whole goal every day was to show that I can compete against anyone out there that I was facing. No matter what pitcher went on that mound, no matter what player across the field that was in Baseball America that was touted as the next coming of Babe Ruth or whoever, I just wanted to say that I can play with that guy every single day. You give me 4 at-bats, you put me on the field, I will do all the little things and intangibles that guy can do just as well. And so that was my mission all the time, was to prove my worth. Now, on the flip side, the negative side of that, a chip on your shoulder can eat you up. It can give you envy. It can give you jealousy. It can give you a lot of stuff if you allow it to go in certain ways. So there was times in my life and times in my career where I felt like I always had to tell people, or like I had to prove my worth to people. And it rubbed people the wrong way sometimes, but they didn't understand that part. They didn't understand because some of these guys were first-round draft picks. They were, from the day they were 13 years old, they were looked at in different ways. And that's where the beauty of the differences of personalities and characters comes in to mesh together as one. So there were times where it kind of hurt me, where I had to always feel like I had to prove my worth. The problem was I was past that point. So, sometimes you can have that, you can go a little too far with your chip on your shoulder, and you have to corral it in and make sure you don't get too crazy in certain ways. But the chip on the shoulder mentality is basically a way, I think what Kobe said it best. He's like, every day, this isn't a direct quote, but it's similar to this. He knows he can't be perfect, but every day he strives to be perfect. And I think that's the chip on the shoulder mentality is, you can't be perfect, but you strive every day to show that you can be perfect or be the best you possibly can be. And that's what I did.
Love it, brother. And you talk about competing, man, and I haven't been around a hitter like you on a team that I played on. That was like you in terms of competing every at-bat, every pitch. Now, I remember you maybe struck out 3 times a year and you fired your helmet all 3 times. I'm like, dude, what's going on? But you were different than a lot of us going through that because there was that striving for perfection, and you felt like you were going to win every at bat. And if an umpire, called a ball 2 balls out on you and strike 3 or whatever the case may be, it was you got pissed about it. And here I am striking out 50 times a year, thinking like, this guy's 47 behind me right now, and I don't get that mad about it. But I want to talk about just your mentality at the plate, right? Because from the first time I met you, and this again was in college, to the last game you played, you were always one of the better hitters, if not the best, depending on where you were. I want to get in the mind a little bit of your process, your approach at the plate, your thought process, and how'd you develop into as good of a hitter in terms of strike zone awareness, barreling balls up. I mean, you took your walks, but you also had your hits, and you hit for average, you hit for power, you did all those things. Walk us through inside the mind of Kevin Youkilis.
Yeah, and going back to like getting mad, I think a lot of people like when, watching me play and my intensity and my fire it was internal. A lot of like if you played with me, you got to know. And some guys just hated it. I mean, I get it. I mean, they just didn't understand it. They hated it, and I apologize to all my teammates that hated it. But um, it's the getting frustrated because I know I would go back and revert through the at bat and go, God, oh, dude, hit that pitch, swing the bat. Like there were things that I was getting so frustrated with myself, but I couldn't keep it in. If I kept it in, I would just blow up even worse. Right. So I just it was in, like you saw when I play, I get it off my chest, go out and play defense. Here we go. Let's go again. Right. But that's the key. If you're going to get mad, if you're going to get upset, you got to let it go. You can't take it out to the field. Never take it out to defense. You know, release, go. So for any of those kids that need to release that energy and have that kind of like, mentality that everything's do or die, you got to release it and you got to move on. And once you learn how to do that, you'll be a better player, not only for yourself, but for your team. Your team, if you're just basking in it the whole time, your teammates, they kind of feel it, and like they're gonna, if you take it on the field and the pitcher and then the catcher, it's a mess. But moving on to my mentality at the plate was, I learned really early that there's certain pitches early on in the count that if I swing and I hit these are very low percentage hard hit ability, I guess I'll call it. It's very hard to hit, a fastball out over the plate, down and away, hard, up and in, hard. So even if it's a strike, right, that doesn't mean I need to hit it. There are pitches that I'm looking for within my little window, right? So I'll put up the iPad. So this is the strike zone. I probably have this big of a hot zone. So for me, I look in that hot zone early in the count. As the count goes on, I get a strike. Now I'm getting a bigger window. Maybe that window adjusts over here because he's pitching away the whole time. But I move in the strike zone according to the pitcher. So, but until I get 2 strikes, I'm not trying to cover this whole iPad. If you try to cover this whole iPad, and which is the whole strike zone, and granted, in college it probably goes off to here on both sides, you're not going to be able to do it. And with good pitchers, you have to even understand that you have to pick corridors. You can't just think inside and he's pounding away. If this is your strength and he's throwing away, you have to move that corridor over to the middle at least. So for me, everything was about location of what I knew I could handle well against that pitcher. Each pitcher's different. And if you watch the game and follow the game, especially if you have a scouting report, the scouting reports are amazing now. It's a joke. I mean, everything, people are like, oh, the game's better, like this and that. Well, of course, the scouting reports are way better. The percentages of guys throwing in certain counts is way different. But that doesn't explain everything. It's all explaining the past. So if you fulfill your brain with as much knowledge of the analytics of what that pitcher did in the past, you'll have a good feeling what he can do today. But the key is you got to watch the game. If that guy is coming out, he's throwing the first batter 2 sliders in the dirt, the second guy 2 sliders in the dirt. Now we go, okay, he doesn't have a slider today. Throw that pitch out there until he shows he can throw that pitch again, because he might come back to that in the 3rd inning because he found it. He found it in a warm-up pitch. So for me, my whole thing was understanding, knowing the pitcher, each at-bat adjusting to what the pitcher is doing, what the game is doing. And if you're not following the game, if you only care about what you want out of each at-bat, you'll never be the best hitter you possibly can be. You have to learn and understand the game, how it works early on, middle, late in game, and adjust it to what you do well. But if you're not scouting the opposition, if you're not paying attention to the game, if you're not trying to do the little things of moving a runner over, getting the ball up in the zone with a guy on third base, infield in, it's the littlest things. And I could go on for 20 minutes telling you every little situation. But the more and more you think about it, the more you apply it into your game, the better you can be. If your object is only to hit homers and drive the ball, you will never reach your full potential. I'm not anti a lot of the new stuff. I'm anti the fact that it's become selfish baseball for a lot of players. Don't be selfish. Be selfish when you're in the box. That's a big deal because no one can help you. Your hitting coaches over there, they can't tell you what's coming. Well, in certain situations they can. We don't need to discuss that. But the bottom line is, yeah. So you have to understand like all the little stuff that how you come in and know yourself individually that day too. You know, you have to be real with yourself. And I was very real every day because I knew where I was at with, are my hands working well today? Am I hurting? And do I, is my body, struggling in a way where I have to adjust? And those little adjustments all the time are the key to hitting. And so for me, being able to be malleable, but also trying to be as knowledgeable about the game as possible is how you get better in the box.
This is Fire Uke and our former teammate, Brad Vogel. Vogel's got a great question. He was thinking along just with me. He said, when did that approach come to you? When did you start kind of figuring that out? Was it when we were at UC, or did it evolve over time?
It's when Vogel lost that front tooth. Vogue. Oh, man, I'll never forget that when he lost that front tooth. Love the guy. Yeah, my approach came in a lot of ways. We had a good talk. Coach Cleary always had this good talk from that book, The Mental Game of Hitting. And he kind of, look, Vogue loved it. Missed that guy. Such a good dude. Yeah. But, yeah, he kind of talked about percentages, the amount of percentages that guys can repeat that two front teeth. There you go. He lost two front teeth. I love it. The percentages. So everything, like we go off statistics and analytics, but like the percentage of guys being able to throw a slider back to back or to throw for a strike or a curveball or a changeup is a lot lower than a fastball. So learning that and understanding it, if a guy throws you a first pitch slider down the way and it's a strike, now I go, okay, if he repeats this pitch 3 times, I'm going to tip my cap. I'm going to compete. I'm going to try to put it in play, whatever. But he's pitching. He's doing his job. He is spot on today. He's doing an amazing job. But if I go out there and I swing first pitch and roll over, not only does that do nothing for me personally, that does nothing for our team either. Saw one pitch, 1 out, and next thing you know, this guy's into the 8th inning, right? So I think that's one of the keys in all this is understanding and knowing that it's good to be aggressive. Always think aggressive. Always think in the zone, but be aggressive within you where you want it early. And so for me, my approach was I want to get a pitch that I can hit, but I also want to see pitches. Every single time I see a pitch, this big dome in here filled with, who knows, there's probably a lot of water in the small brain, but in here, you're gaining. Every time your mind sees a pitch, it all of a sudden, it's a USB thing. Like you just basically have this port in there like that just keeps collecting information over and over and over. And the more you collect information, the more your brain's going to process the next pitch and then the next pitch. So when people ask, well, how do you hit the major league level? I was like, it's the amount of information that was gained from T-ball all the way up to pro ball. And it's kind of crazy to think that way, but that's how you get better and better is the information gathered. And for me, I saw a lot of pitches. So I always felt that seeing more pitches allowed me to gain more information and get my timing better and to understand spin and to see it better. So I just was in the, for me and my approach, it came more about staying up the middle, trying to drive the ball in the gaps and trying to get a good pitch to hit. It's very simple, but when you watch players, a lot of players struggle with it for many different reasons. And a lot of it has to do with fear of striking out.
Hitting is simple. It's just not that easy, Uke. That was a great explanation of, and I appreciate you walking us through that. I wish I had that mentality at UC. I think I would have made contact a couple more times. I was just trying to get the first fastball I could. And if I missed it, there comes the changeup and I was done. But
St. Louis, you had that homer in St. Louis though.
If I had gone to St. Louis, I would have been a Hall of Famer. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Because, I mean, that's the only place I think I hit there. But everybody who has watched you They think about the stance. The batting stance guy loves to impersonate you. When we played together, you had a different stance than most people saw in the big leagues. It evolved over time. And the things that you've been talking about so far is hitting, the thought process, the conversation on hitting and learning how to hit. A lot of things out there today are about how to swing. You touched upon it a little bit before. It's kind of like the cookie cutter or the crazy things that we see. We've talked about it before. But without getting too far down that rabbit hole, I want to talk about your swing and how it evolved, and maybe how some of the coaches out there approached you through your career, or how you would have liked a coach to approach you and your swing as well.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest thing now is swing coaches. I mean, that's the hottest, newest thing out there is there's so many swing coaches and breaking down the mechanics. And there's some very, very good information within the technology we're using today. But the bottom line is this. Mechanics can change. Stances can change. Guys change all the time. Some of the best you've ever seen. Cal Ripken changed it all the time. Your mechanics at the end of the day, yes, you have to have a good foundation of mechanics and that, but the higher levels you get, mechanics, you can throw those out half the time because you're not going to be on time. You're not, the guys that, your Johnny Cueto's of the world, your Strowmans of the world, they're going to get you off balance. And you need to learn how to hit when you're off balance. You need to learn how to hit when you're on time, when you're off time. And that's the thing that a lot of swing coaches don't understand is you're trying to, like, same thing, you're trying to strive for perfection all the time, but how do you hit when you're not perfect? That's what the greats do. The greats can hit when they're off balance, when they're not on time. And that's the key with a lot of it is just understanding that. And, a lot of the newest things with, the mechanics and for me, the stance, it evolved. I was a Jeff Bagwell mixed with Chuck Knobloch in college. And I had a metal bat so I could stay inside the ball. Sorry, I got allergies. And I could drive the ball to right center field. So that was my bread and butter was center field, right center field with a metal bat, different swing path. I could do it easier. What I learned as I went through into pro ball was this thing called a sinker and heavy sinker. And
Cookie, Aaron Cook, you mentioned Cookie before.
Yeah, Cookie didn't have that sinker in high school.
No.
And he learned how to throw that. He had velocity, and then he learned how to sink it a little bit. And that's the key is as the sinker came, I need to get elevated more. I was very spread out, and what happened was being spread out, I couldn't get to that pitch as well and hit it. So I learned I need to get taller and have a thought process of down and through the ball.
It's amazing we have to talk about that now, right?
Well, I don't like the fighting anymore. I've gotten to the point where everyone's arguing what is literal versus figurative and
real versus real. Yeah.
That Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, and all the greats say I think down to and through the ball. People argue only in this short window of the swing, but if your hands are here and the ball is at your knee, you naturally have to go down and hit. Now, does the bat flatten out? Does the bat go up? Yeah, let's not argue about all that stuff. But that's one of the biggest things is I learned is I can't hit that sinker as well. So, everyone's so argumentative on what somebody needs to do versus what players need to feel, what players need to understand, and what players need to do in order to go up through the ladder, right? It's the adjustments. It's learning them. It's feeling the adjustment. If you don't feel it, you're not going to get better. Somebody can tell you every single day what you're doing wrong. But if you don't feel it, if you don't make the adjustments, you have zero chance of going up the ladder. The better you learn the feels within and not rely on technology to tell you what's going on, the better you will get. It's 100% truth here. The guys that get to the top level feel, adjust, and understand it way better. And that's the key. The same people, I would say this, in this new wave, how come if we know what Barry Bonds did, if we know every little movement that he made, if we can mimic and mock him, why aren't players coming close to doing what Barry Bonds did? Without the juice ball. Sorry, without the juice ball. And you have to look at that and people say, well, the pitching's better. Well, let me tell you something. When Barry Bonds was a rookie, to the time he hit 70, the pitching got better. There was a whole steroid era. Guys were throwing 97.
Oh, yeah.
Guys were throwing hard. Guys had spin. Yes, we're evolving in the game. Hitters evolve, pitchers evolve. But the problem is we have too much talking points on the littlest things that don't matter. And for me, the key to all this is the mental game of this, understanding it and understanding the feels. We can go and talk about mechanics all day long, and that's fine. That's fine. It works for player X, but player Y, player Z, it doesn't work for. And that's the key of being a good hitting coach in today's game more than ever, is understanding your player, understanding the information being given to them. For the one player that wants all the information, every little detail and analytic, there's another player next to him that doesn't want one part of it. And they're both great. So, for me, I think the key is with all of it is just trying to understand and learn yourself first, and having a good hitting coach that understands you as a person.
Love it, man. I'm gonna have to save this whole entire. I'm surprised. I'm mad at myself. We went live on this. This should be on YouTube and saved forever. But I'll save this because Kev, this is awesome stuff, man. And coming from, again, I always I tell young guys, so you want to learn from people who have been there and done it. That's who you want to learn from. And that's one of the many reasons I wanted to have you on, is you've been there and you've done it and did it for a long time. And the other piece of that, I think, is you're explaining it pretty simply to people. And it's, what's the famous quote? If you don't understand it, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. I'm paraphrasing, but it's a famous quote, and I think that's what you're alluding to. Certainly coming from a guy that had a crazy stance in a lot of people's eyes, but it worked, and you stood your ground, you evolved, but you didn't let somebody take that stance or swing away from you. I've seen so many guys that have been coached out of their swing, and they can never get it back, or it takes them a while to get back. And so that's another thing I think you did a really good job of. Yeah, you evolved, but it was yours. You took ownership of it, and it was a non-negotiable, and you weren't going to let anybody take it from you.
That was the key. Is I hit 180 or one something in AAA. I get called up to AAA. I was in AA. It was an all-star. Had a great year. It was doing great. It was my second year back in AA in Portland. Get called up to AAA. Now this AAA team was probably, we have young Kim. We were the highest paid AAA team maybe in the history of baseball. I mean, there was millionaires on this team. It was crazy. Well, I'm like getting $1,000 check a month. I'm like, wow, these guys are amazing. Hung out with them, had a blast. But I had more veteran type guys that had a little bit of service time that were trying to tell me what I needed to do in order to get better. And I had players telling me 7 different things. And that is where it got really difficult. Oh, you got me?
No, we're good now. Yep.
Okay. So I had 7 different players telling me 7 different things. And I'm this young guy, and I you know me, I was in awe of some of these guys. Like, that was just me. I had such respect for players, but I was in awe of them. Like, oh my God. And I'm trying to fit in, and I hit like crap. And what I learned through it was everyone was trying to tell me what they thought I should do versus understanding what I know best about me. These guys didn't even, they half of them didn't even know who the hell I was. I went up to AAA. They were from different teams, different organizations. I saw them in spring training a little bit. So what I did the next year was I said, you know what? I need to do what's best for Kevin. I need to look internally. How do I hit? How do I adjust? And take little bitty pieces of what they're saying and how it can apply to me. So what I learned was talk to a bunch of hitters, listen to what they have to say. There's something little from each and one of them that you will get that will apply to yourself. So that was one of the things I learned most, was how to take little pieces of information from everyone. And that's also the realization I learned, that there's no such thing as cookie cutter. There's no such thing as one applies to all. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's going on right now, is we're seeing a lot of cookie cutter approaches to something that is not true. There's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of ways to go about it. And you just have to be secure within yourself. And you also have to understand that you have to become your best hitting coach. If you don't become your best hitting coach, you have no one to blame but yourself. Time and time again, people say, oh, this hitting coach ruined me. And if I would have known this, I would have been this. Well, how do you know what you would have been? Because the bottom line is this. I tell them, somebody goes, oh, man, I had a horrible hitting coach. That's why I had a bad year. I go, yeah. They're like, oh, you know him? I go, yeah, I'm looking right at him. And they look at me puzzled, and they don't want to accept that, because it's easier to blame the hitting coach you disagreed with than to blame yourself. Be accountable for yourself. And the quicker you understand yourself in the box, the quicker you will get better at this game. And a lot of it too is not just, there's going on a little tangent here, but for me, there's a lot of things that have been said. I actually did a course through a buddy of a certification of a technology. I won't name who it is, but then probably by me saying this, that said hitting the back of the net in practice in your cage work is wrong. It's a negative, because the ball and the trajectory of the ball, if you watch it, is not what you do in a game. So for 8 years of my major league career, and my methods and the way I would try to drive the ball through the back of the net at 50%, at 70% work ethic was wrong. And that's what the puzzling thing that I have a concern with is the direction we're going with teaching hitting. If you're telling people that's wrong, and major league guys continually get on the MLB network and are driving balls to the back of the cage, and that's their workout routine, how can it be wrong? That's like me telling the guy that doesn't do that drives the ball to left field and just tries to hit homers in the cage, but he has success on the field, that he's doing it wrong. I would never say that, because it's individually based. Everyone has routines. The quicker you figure out your routine that works best in your cage work, that takes it into the game, that is the key to it all. So I don't care if you do gadgets, gimmick, whatever you do, gadgets, gimmicks, that's you. But that's not for everybody. And as a player, you got to learn what works for you. What gadgets, what gimmicks, all that stuff for me. And I would say this: if you're struggling, don't all of a sudden start trying to do the gadgets and gimmicks that the guy next to you is doing because he has success. That might take you down a worse path.
Yeah.
Right? And then you start searching for something else. Be very, very understanding of what you do, and that time. Just because you're cold right now, you'll get hot. But you got to trust in the process, trust in what you do, trust in your work.
Love it, Kev, man. We could go for 2 hours on this, man. I'll let you go and wind you up and let you go, man. Yeah. Dakota just said preparation breeds confidence. Exactly what you're talking about. That's where confidence comes from. You're sold on your prep work, and daily, every day. And it's non-negotiable when you go through it. And I love talking about, 50%, and you had a purpose to every single thing that you did. You found in the details, and you found exactly what worked for you, and go. And dude, man, this is awesome. We're at the end though, Kev. Is there anything that you want to add to what we talked about? I certainly want to talk about what you're doing too. Share us what you're doing and what you're doing post career. But anything else in what we've talked about, or you've talked about today, you want to end with?
Yeah, I think just the big thing, guys, is I do want to say this to people out there that might have young kids that didn't have a baseball background. There is a thing going around, and this is kind of the ironic thing of you had Iapoce on, Anthony Iapoce, the hitting coach for the Cubs, and I talked to him. I talk to him all the time. There's a misconception that major league players think that you have to be a major league player to be a great coach, and that's not true. We don't talk like that. Anthony Iapoce never played at the major leagues. He played the minor leagues. He's very well respected. I look at him as a great hitting coach. And on the flip side, there's also a thing saying that great hitters don't know what they're doing and can't teach it. Now, there are some that don't know how to communicate it well, while others can be really good communicators. But that doesn't mean they don't have any knowledge of the game and things that applied. Listen to some of these guys. Like I said before, just because they are all-stars or Hall of Famers doesn't mean they have all the answers, but they do have wisdom. They do have knowledge, and there's little things you can take from them that will help you grow. So be careful within the baseball community of people selling that former players don't know what they're talking about. They might not communicate it well, but they know what they're talking about because it worked for them and they did it every day. So that's basically like just a kind of a thing to a lot of people out there. We shouldn't be hating on people. For me, my philosophies are I just want to make sure that young kids are getting good advice at a young age. So for all you young players out there, have fun, play wiffle ball, play with your friends, do the little things. You don't need to play games every day. The fundamentals come in really good practice. So practice is just as important as games, especially at the younger levels. So to any coaches out there, man, just get them out there having fun, just playing the game and just doing the little things because practice isn't sexy. Taking ground balls isn't sexy. Hitting cutoffs isn't sexy. Rundowns, first and third, all those are boring. But it's a part of the process that makes you better and is going to give you the most confidence later down the road when you don't feel uncomfortable because you've done it over and over and over. So that's basically just, for all the coaches out there, for all the young players out there, have respect for the people that came before you. That's one of the coolest things. I loved older players. We're seeing a lot of young college players and some young college coaches that are combating a lot of guys that put a lot of time in the dirt. And then there's a lot of guys that put a lot of time in the dirt that are, can be disrespectful at times. So it works both ways. We just need to build a better community within baseball going forward. But I'll leave you with this. It's Loma Brewing Company. Check it out, lomabrew.com. I got a brew pub out here in Los Gatos, California. And I'm also doing coffee, loma-coffee.com. You can order retail bags online. So there's my self-promotion.
I love it. Well, today, like I said, it's powered by Loma Coffee and Loma Brew today. So we appreciate the sponsorship of this coffee with Kdub, Kev. And man, you brought it, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate what you're doing. We didn't even mention your special assistant with the Cubs, and you're still in the game. You talked about Post, and I gave a shout out to Post. I know Post was watching. Thank you, Post, and thank you to all who've watched. Kev, that was awesome, man. I hope people replay this. Hope they share it. Great information. You have wisdom from your experience. It's always great getting back together with you, brother. And I wish all you guys stay safe and stay healthy out there in California.
You too, buddy. Yeah, I'm ready for this quarantine to get over so we can see some ball.
Absolutely, brother. All right, man. Thanks for joining us, brother.
All right, buddy. Take care.
See you, Kev.